Hi folks, welcome back to the channel. Hope everybody is happy and healthy and getting out there to exercise. Welcome back to another episode of Tech for Health and Athletic Performance. And in this episode, we're going to talk about a very interesting company that is working on a product for continuous glucose monitoring. Now you will notice that I didn't say non-invasive, which as you know has been a focus for this channel. Those are the only things that we have looked at. But what this company does is about as close to non-invasive as you can get. And so let's dive into it. And so the name of the company is Biolink with a Q at the end, and they're based out of San Diego, California in the US. And so the thing that stands out about them is that they use multiple, we don't know how many yet, microneedles, and the microneedles are 1/4 of a millimeter long. Now in comparison, a device like Libre, Freestyle Libre, has one needle, but that needle is 5 millimeters long. So we're talking about a difference of about 20 times, as you can tell from the picture. Now, because the needles are so short, they obviously do not reach all the way down into the interstitial fluid. You will recall that all the other devices that we've talked about try to measure, well, not all of them, but a number of them, try to measure blood glucose in the interstitial fluid. Biolink does not. They look to measure glucose and other things that we're going to talk about in a second from the dermis. Now, what is the dermis? Well, here is a picture. And the dermis is the inner layer of the two main layers of the skin. And so you can tell from the picture it has a number of things in it. It has connective tissue, it has blood vessels, it has oil and sweat glands, it has nerves, it has hair follicles, and it has also some other structures. And it's made of an upper layer which is thin, and a much thicker lower layer. So why do the people at Biolink think that it's better to sample blood glucose and other analytes in the dermis rather than the interstitial fluid? Well, they list 3 reasons in their patent application, which are worth talking about. The first one is what they call the low diffusion latency, which gives them real-time or near real-time measurements compared to venous blood. And so what they're in effect saying is that the blood glucose levels and other analytes in the dermis are time-wise closer to blood than the interstitial fluid, or rather than the glucose in the interstitial fluid. As I think we've talked about it before, there is obviously a delay which could be anywhere from 10 to 30 minutes. People are still debating that issue, between blood glucose levels in the blood and in the interstitial fluid. And clearly one of the things that people who look to measure blood glucose in interstitial fluid have to deal with when they figure out their algorithms is how long that delay is, and in fact whether the delay is constant or not. And so what the Biolink team is saying is that our approach is better because there is a much shorter time delay here. I have no ability to validate that independently. I take them at it, and I guess the proof of the pudding at the end of the day is how well their device is going to work, right? The second reason they raise is what they call a more stable sensing environment around the microneedles, because of the vascularization, because of the perfusion, which is the flow of liquids. So once again, they believe that that environment is more stable compared to interstitial fluids, which are more fluid, I guess, right? And the third reason, which I think is going to bring happiness to us all, is that there are no pain receptors in the dermis. And so for that reason, it should be painless, hopefully. We shall see. So what they're obviously looking to do is to sense the liquids in the dermis using these microneedles, and because of that, they're obviously using electromechanical sensors at the end of the day to make sense of the analytes in the dermis. And they're initially looking to monitor 3 different analytes. So we've talked about blood glucose. They're also looking at lactate, and they're looking at ketones, which in principle makes a lot of sense, right? Now, you've all heard about lactate, lactic acid. We know that it's generated through the ATP energy generation process when we burn glucose for energy. Ketones are chemicals, actually acids, which are produced by the liver when it breaks down fat. And so what they're trying to do is actually very interesting and very complementary, right? Especially if you think from an exercise perspective. If you burn glucose, glycogen, you generate lactate. It's good to know how much you're generating. If you're burning fat, you're generating ketones. It might be good to sort of keep track of that. And especially in the context of diabetes, because ketones can be toxic and acidic in the blood, type 1 diabetics need to keep track of it, because if their level of ketones in the blood becomes too high, that could actually be quite life-threatening. For the rest of us who are maybe using it more from an exercise perspective, once again, it could be good to know, especially on those longer efforts, whether it's triathlon, marathons, or ultras, to help us understand the extent to which we're burning fat and what that is doing to our bodies. So the Biolink product is still under development. It's not on the market. I've been looking for trial results, and I've quite frankly only found one clinical trial going back to 2020, which is a little dated and a little surprising that that's all there is, but I guess they're maybe keeping things secret. In this study, a 2-phase study, now not a phase 2 study, a 2-phase study. In the first phase, they had 5 subjects without diabetes and 10 subjects with diabetes who wore the Biolink sensor for 2 days. And in the second phase, they had 10 participants with diabetes who wore the sensor for 7 days. Now, they compared the data from the Biolink sensors to venous blood, which is the gold standard, of course. And they've released these graphics of how well the data aligns. It doesn't list an MARD, which is unfortunate. And also, it doesn't say much about this study in terms of the frequency with which blood was measured, either by the Biolink device or the reference device. I have looked at clinicaltrials.gov, and I have not found any other trials mentioning them or mentioning microneedles, as best as I can tell, either past or future. The one thing that I have come across, however, is potentially a current trial. So Atlanta Diabetes Associates in Atlanta, Georgia, is currently, according to their website, which I hope is current, recruiting patients for a Biolink trial. Now, I did not call them, I did not register for it, I don't want to bother these people since I'm not going to be participating in their trial. But if anyone is interested, here is the information, and you can have a look at it. And if you learn something, please share the information with us. But once again, hopefully if you learn something, you will do that because you're genuinely interested in participating in the trial. Now, what else can I tell you about them? They've actually been very good at raising money. This March 2024, they raised $58 million, which I think we can recognize for is a very significant amount of money for anyone, but especially for companies who are working in non-invasive glucose or glucose monitoring, quite frankly. It's a very significant amount of money. They've done it for product development, potentially for pivotal trial. Now, that's presumably a very good sign. I'd like to believe that they shared data with their potential and existing new investors that they haven't shared with us as the public. So presumably this is a vote of confidence by people who have seen some data that we have not seen. And in general, they've been good at raising money. It looks like they might have raised close to $200 million over their existence. And they have some very good investors in there. Some of the ones with more name recognition would be Mark Cuban. It's one of his investments. And they also have the JDRF TD1 fund, which, once again, people who know diabetes, who invest in diabetes related products. So that's a good sign as well. So in summary, an interesting company bringing, or rather working on a product which looks very interesting, uses a different technology from other companies that we've looked at. It's not, strictly speaking, non-invasive, but should be much more appealing, hopefully, to people who don't like invasive needles, and which from a technical perspective looks interesting and looks quite feasible. So certainly wish them good luck. Look forward to learning more about what's going on with them. Hopefully they will be registering trials and releasing some information and ultimately, hopefully seeking FDA approval. So we'll get some information that way. And yeah, it'll be interesting to see. And obviously, as I learn things, I will bring them to you. If any of you learn anything about them, please share it with us, right? And with that, thank you for watching, folks. Hopefully you found it useful. Feel free to give me a thumbs up if you liked it and subscribe, and be well. Take good care of yourself. Take care. Bye-bye.